understanding the basic psychology of the dog you have in your house is quite important.
So if she's lost focus, she doesn't refocus, we can just shape her behaviour up a little bit with the leash, and I'm looking for opportunities to reinforce her. So what I'm looking for is like eye contact, a bit of focus. I can draw it in a little bit with a bit of, just to try and get the first couple of reps in. It's important whatever you have is motivating to her. At the moment I've just got normal kibble, so if I need to I'll go to a higher value reinforcer.
Yeah.
She's quite distracted. Good you. Instead of me giving attention or talking to her going what's wrong or feeding into it, I'm just kind of trying to keep her moving and refocus her back onto me and looking for an opportunity to add reinforcement. So I'm just trying to shape her behaviour and find somewhere where I can reinforce something that is wanted. Whereas at the moment she's not really giving me anything that I could reinforce, so I'm just ignoring it and moving away from her and a bit of leash guidance to try calm her down. Because if she's wanting access to it, right, I'm preventing that from happening. So I'm punishing the behaviour by not letting her access whatever it is she wants, which is going to reduce this what you're seeing.
Yeah, well, that's what she's like. She'll lay down for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
At the most, and then she's up and then she's looking around for something to eat.
Eat. Oh, okay. So what would that be like?
Whether it could be a plant pot.
Okay. So she's kind of almost like destructive, would you say?
Yes. Yeah.
So that might be like a, so she's getting herself wound up and then she's putting that energy and focus into something in the environment to get rid of that frustration essentially.
Yeah.
So I'm giving her like I'm trying to give her a positive outlet for it. So I'm saying like when you get wound up, I'm going to just do this over and over again. When you finally calm down, sit, relax, whatever, I'm going to reinforce that. So then over time we should see a reduction of this and more calm. If that makes sense. Whereas if she searches, so this is where the management comes into play. If she's got access to the environment in the house, and say she's off the leash and she does this behaviour and then goes and gets something, that's self-reinforcing. So she's getting reinforcement from the environment. So if you give her access to it, the behavioural loop is just going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Yeah, so the management is about managing that behaviour. So when you're not watching her, she's in the crate. When she's out of the crate, she's on a leash. And when she's calm lying down, you can probably let the leash go.
Yeah.
But then when she wants to access the environment and that behavioural pattern kicks in, just pick up the leash and calm her back down. And once she calms down, you can give her affection. But you're just being very, very precise with all your communication, and that's what's going to shape her behaviour and give her clarity on what the expectations are. So she starts to give a little bit of focus.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I can reinforce, and I'm going to give quite a heavy reinforcement, so it's like 6 or 7 treats.
You get a bonus, but then you get a
Yeah, that's it. And so every time she does the right thing, I'm using the verbal cue yes. So I'm saying yes, and then I'm giving her food. So have you heard of classical conditioning?
No.
Pavlov? So they did a study, they had all these dogs in a kennel, they had a tone would go off and then they'd feed the dogs the food. And what happened over time is the dogs would have the same response to the tone as they would the food. Okay, so what ends up happening is the yes marker, the tone, means we can mark moments in time the dog has done the correct thing and then reinforcement can follow.
Like me saying sound associated with that.
Sit. Yes. And then the more I do this, the more she'll learn that the yes marker equals food and it'll become stronger. So I can use it for multiple things. Let's say I say come and she's over there and she looks at me and moves towards me and I say yes, she's going to go, oh, come equals yes, which equals food. I can pair it all with the same sequence, and then I can shape her behaviour and create new behaviours that are wanted. So it's very clear to her. So we'd ignore this whining. I go back to my walking around. You can see she's calming down quicker now.
Yeah.
Yes. So see, so she's going to learn very quickly how she can get access to good things.
If you give it in your pocket, she knows where it is. You're not silly, are they?
Very smart. So She does the whining. I stay consistent. Nothing's changing from what I'm doing. I'm being predictable. Yes. Good. I'm just giving you more feedback. Ignoring. Yes. Reinforce. So see how I'm just shaping your behaviour? And there's a huge amount of communication going on between me and her right now. Like things like I'm punishing this right now. So the word punishment sounds like, you know, smacking a kid. Like punishment is just reduction, reducing her behaviour. So me ignoring her, not giving her access to what she wants potentially, or whatever's reinforcing her, is what's reducing the behaviour. So there's a massive misconception when you hear the word punishment. So what I'm thinking in my head is the time frame between these little episodes is getting shorter and shorter. And the whining's actually reducing because I'm giving her clarification. And then once this communication system is very strong, we can utilize this for the reactivity. Because at the moment, she needs to learn what the leash means. She needs to learn what the verbal cue yes means. She needs to learn what is wanted from her and how she can access reinforcement. So then I can utilize that as a communication system to shape her behavior in more challenging situations. Whereas at the moment, it's too weak to use, if that makes sense. The communication isn't strong enough. It's like learning to speak Chinese and then getting thrown in like a high-level Chinese class where you're having to try keep up with everybody. It's just completely it's completely unrealistic. And that's kind of, she's learning Chinese, but she's at grade 1, not at grade 8 yet, which is the reactivity. Seems to be like a combination of things like noise, scent. So she's seen something. So it's so they take in information 3 ways: scent, sight, sound. So in this case, she was calming down, but then something else happened. So it's like a double trigger. So it was like, oh, I was calming, but I wasn't quite there, and then something else changed in the environment. So I've now escalated. Right, so she was already triggered, and then we added another trigger, which would be the same as you being peeved off at someone, and then me coming along and pissing you off even more, and then all of a sudden you're more wound up. So that's why it's so important that we reduce kind of the amount of stimuli around her, because she's struggling to just deal with the environment, let alone a distraction, if that makes sense. And then it just builds and builds, and then it's too hard to communicate with her when they get like this. You've just got to wait for her to calm back down. Because a big part of dealing with dogs is being aware of what is what the dog is thinking and feeling. Because if we're not aware, I can't take action off that. So if I don't know what the dog's doing, it's very hard for me to one, if I know the dog is very distracted because it's the noises, uncertain of the noises, it helps keep me very patient, because I'm I understand why this is happening. Versus if we're just kind of going into training, not understanding how the dog's perceiving the world, it's very hard to kind of give the right intervention and the right kind of training to get the dog to move forward, if that makes sense. So all the things I'm pointing out are just to help make you guys aware of what I'm thinking about and what the dog's feeling. Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment the best thing you could actually do is in terms of walking her, is put her on a harness, not use anything around her neck, because she's just going to pull into it at this point. Right. And that's going to potentially cause damage. We only want to use things around a dog's neck if we're actually using it for training. So at the moment, I think this is going to be probably beyond a new dog owner's skill level to deal with. We would just have her on a harness and just let her interact with the environment. Yeah. And what all I want you to do is get her comfortable in environments with nothing going on. Because if she can go into a new environment, say you make her stand at the back of the car for 5 minutes, then you let her out. Then you just let her sniff the environment. It's going to build her confidence. And And then in the house, we're just trying to prevent her from having access to behaviours that we don't want to see. Because at the moment you don't have a communication system, so you can't communicate with her effectively to actually stop a behaviour, and it's too much for her as well. So when she reacts like that, there's no way you're going to be able to communicate with her effectively that's actually going to make a difference long term in her behaviour. So what we need to do is isolate her, take her out of any environment where something's going to go wrong, teach her like a very strong communication system through repetition, positive reinforcement, a little bit of leash training, teach her the expectations, then start to expose her to the stimuli that's causing this reaction. And then then that's when we kind of adjust and see how things are going. We might need to bring the e-collar into it. We may not, depending on the dog. And then we start to work on that issue. But until you've got actually an effective communication system, you're essentially speaking like gibberish to her. Like she's not going to have a clue, and it may make things worse. If that makes sense. It's great. So in the house, have you got a crate at the moment?
Yes, yeah.
Cool, perfect.
And she's all right with that.
Nice.
Yeah, from day one actually. So they must have had a crate or something.
Yeah, but they need to have their own space.
Yeah.
So the crate's going to be a part of your management system, and that's going to be a part of your management system probably long term until she gets a little bit older.
Right.
And it's used as it's like a baby's cot, right? Like if we had a 3-year-old toddler and we left that 3-year-old toddler downstairs with a crayon and she draws all over the wall, are we going to blame the toddler? Probably not, right? So we take responsibility for the dog's actions until the dog understands that what the expectations are. So the crate is used as like a way to manage the dog within the environment to prevent bad things or unwanted things from happening. And then over time, we slowly give freedom back to the dog as the dog earns that trust.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So she'll be in a crate or she'll be in the house on a leash unless she's very calm in the house. And when you say she wants your attention, is that like pawing, nudging, trying to listen?
Sitting up and
Hitting with the apron straight, mummy, mummy, mummy.
and painting.
Okay, so like let's break down like affection. Okay, so affection is what I would call a reinforcer.
Right.
Okay, so like if say she lies down and I pat her, I'm saying like do more of that behavior. Okay. If say she comes and starts pushing on me, nudging me, licking me, trying to climb on top of me, seeking attention, and I pat her, I'm reinforcing attention-seeking behavior, which is the same as to a child, right? Like if we had a child and they constantly want access to our attention and we give in, what happens is the child goes, oh, the more I seek attention, the more attention I get.
Yeah.
And then what happens is if you say hold out for a little while to the child, let's say for 20 minutes, and you eventually give in, you're saying try harder and I will eventually give you that attention. So then the behavior gets strengthened because the dog's going, oh, if I keep going, eventually it gives in. Okay, so the management in the house is to prevent things like this from happening, because that interaction is going to be like, we still need to give the dog affection and give that love, but we need to do it in a productive way that isn't going to create issues. And what I tend to find with dogs like this is if they get access to affection on their terms, they start to get very protective and they start resource guarding. Okay, and that's just like that's a species specific behavior. It's not like humans. Like if I get attached to a human, I don't start guarding that person. It's not like a normal human trait. However, with the dog, it is, especially a German Shepherd like this. So we've essentially got a dog that is trying to dictate how resources are given in your relationship, and then if we're feeding into that through affection and attention, we're reinforcing the dog for that, and that's putting the dog in a power position.